Well, with no further ado, let me introduce you to our speaker tonight, or it's today, if you are in the US or in the other side of the pond. It's Scott Eddy. It's one of the top 5 luxury travel influencers in the world. I don't like to call him influencer because for me, influencer is not a good word. I prefer to call him entrepreneur because
I agree.
Main difference being that he knows about business. He knows what he's doing. I met him online, of course, but despite the fact that he was tweeting with the marketing hashtag, and I have a thing against hashtag marketing. And I think our first conversation revolved around that. And you said like, hey, not everybody is bad when tweeting about marketing. We started engaging, and we met also in San Francisco, right? Met a couple of times over there. And so I think that, you follow his lifestyle. He's been creating businesses. He moved to Asia a few years back. Right now, he's on permanent travel. So he's literally just traveling all the time. He's right now stuck in a hotel.
Actually right now, not on permanent travel.
Yeah, well, right now you're not in permanent travel, but you're in permanent travel with just that you don't have a permanent base camp, right?
I don't have a home.
You don't have a home. All right.
I don't have a home.
Well,
welcome I love to saying that.
Welcome to
people are like afraid to say that. Like, I think it's the greatest thing in the world.
Well, it is, but probably, as you said earlier,
right now,
the worst time to not have a home.
It's very inconvenient right now, but the odds of a pandemic hitting are such, like, come on, I'll roll those dice any day of the week.
Correct. And up until now, it's been advantageous, right?
Yes.
So let's start by describing a little bit, how's your lifestyle and how do you articulate this around business?
My lifestyle was sort of an accident. I wasn't meant to do what I'm doing right now. I was raised the son of a police officer who watched his dad go be a cop every day, spent every afternoon in the police department just learning how to be a police officer, and was going to finish high school and join the police academy, become a cop, retire, and die. Like that, my life's plan was that. There was no college, there was no anything. It was just to be a cop, retire, and die. 3 weeks before I graduated high school, my father was killed in the line of duty, and it just turned my whole life upside down. And I didn't want to be a cop anymore, didn't know what I wanted to do. And my friend's friend was a stockbroker in New York. This was 1989, and the markets were booming. And he said, listen, the top 2 guys just left our firm and they're moving down to Florida. They're going to open up their own firm. I can get you in to an orientation. And I was like, I don't know anything about finance. I don't know how to sell. I don't know math. Like I know nothing about this. And I never went to one day of college, and I have no desire to, because they don't teach you what you need to know in school. So why would I go? So he said, listen, I worked it out. I got you in. So I went there, I got accepted, and I was in the investment banking world for 10 years. Mm-hmm. The good thing that came out of that industry, realistically, the only good thing is I learned how to sell anything to anyone, anywhere on the planet. And I think sales is the raw skill that no matter what industry you're in, you need it. Because if you're opening up your mouth, I don't care what you're doing, you're selling. Correct. And you have to know how to do that. So I did that for 10 years. They sold the firm. I resigned. My friend's friend was an expat living in Thailand. And he said, listen, you've never been to Asia. You've never been to Europe. You're 29 years old. Get your ass over here. So I bought a 2-week ticket. 1999.
Great. Yeah, just
I bought a 2-week
context.
ticket to Bangkok.
Yeah.
After 4 days, I could not get over how kind and nice the people were after growing up over here. It was mind-numbing to me that I'm in one of the biggest cities in the world. I mean, seriously, Bangkok, you could fit 2 New York cities inside Bangkok. Correct. And it blew my mind. So I called my mom. I said, I'm never coming home. Send my stuff. And I lived in Europe and Asia for 17 years. And
I'm never just coming like that.
It was crazy, bro. It was like, looking back on it, it was like, it was the decision that changed my whole life, because I didn't learn about the world, and I really didn't learn about marketing until I moved away from the marketing country of the world. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like the
correct.
mindset of that happening was like
And
an explosion.
what's more interesting to me is that you did this, like everybody now, like especially if you're a white male, you're just moving to Bali because it's easy, right? And you
Right.
just create your drop shipping project on Amazon,
Right.
you create a lifestyle business, and
Yeah.
everything's set for you, remote work, all these tools, whatever. You did it in 1999. Like, I cannot even remember what I was, but I was probably like, in middle
Right.
school or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But definitely there were no tools for that. So, but you created your first businesses there. And one of the things I remember you mentioning is that you were successful because not a lot of people were there, and definitely they prefer to hire you as an expert in marketing rather
Yeah.
than the locals, just because
Right.
this fascination of the foreigner, right? Can you go a little
Right.
bit into detail?
100%. Well, listen, if you're, one thing I realized very quickly is being an American, being overseas, even though I'm not full American, my mother was born in Jamaica. Her parents came from Lebanon, but my father's side's very American. And even though born and raised here, you don't know the knowledge that you have inside of you just being raised here.
Correct.
Like the knowledge you have of Europe by being born and raised in Europe is priceless if you come over here and an American company wants to market to Europe.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the same over there. So basically, the companies that were hiring me were all in hospitality, targeting either American expats, or they were travel companies targeting American tourists.
Yeah.
They just wanted my knowledge.
Great. Yeah.
So I was a massive fish in a small pond because, yeah, there's tons of American expats there, but expats, they have jobs with companies. Like Chevron alone has 15,000 American employees in Thailand. So,
but is it also because, in America, one of the greatest things I think American excels at is that selling. Like, you guys are great
100%,
salespeople,
100%.
right?
Advertising, marketing, the exploitation of a product or a service in the marketing form is at the highest level here. I mean, just look at certain holidays, like Cinco de Mayo. Yeah. Cinco de Mayo is like, and if you ask 90% of the people in America what it is, they'll say it's Mexican independence, which it's not. And it was actually created by the American advertising community, and then picked up by Corona and the beers that do well here, and it just exploded.
Now it's like Santa Claus and Coca-Cola, right?
Right. It's $1 billion holiday for what? It's just it's amazingly, it's mind-blowing the expertise in advertising in this country. It really is. It's unbelievable. So anyway, when I was in Bangkok, that's when social media was created, invented.
Right.
Like it
I was going to go
happened
into
when
that.
I was over there already for a couple of years. So my friend who was living in Hong Kong, who used to work with me at the firm, he was now running the Asian division of a huge advertising company over there. And he said, listen, you should start a digital agency. And I said, I don't even know what that is. And he said, we're investing millions into it. It's basically an advertising company, but your concentration is solely on the digital aspect and social media. And I go, what's social media? And he went on to explain to me this whole thing. And at the end of the day, I started the first digital agency in Southeast Asia. And I was like, I was doing it just to prove him wrong that it wouldn't work, because it was such little cost. I was literally just doing it because he wouldn't stop harping on it about it to me. And I was like, all right, just watch it fail. It's 17 clients in 3 weeks. It was unbelievable. Every hotel I knew, everybody, it was remarkable.
It seems to me that you should listen to him more often, right?
5 years.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, I said we were the biggest in the region for 5 years. It was crazy.
It seems to me that you should listen to him more often, right? Because he told you to move
I
there.
should give him a call right now.
Right. All right. Well, no, and then so that led you to, because obviously if you're selling these, the field of influencers and especially marketing and branding, like it seems to me that you need to have the best way to prove that you're an expert in this field is to be one of these influencers, to have a really big brand, right? And you've built one precisely, perhaps not only because of your accumulated great content over the years, which I've been following thoroughly,
but you don't even know how this all started. So
I don't even know.
So okay, so obviously Instagram just came out a few years ago. I mean, not a few, but it came out a few years ago. Twitter is around much longer than this. Twitter has always been my #1 platform because it's about pure conversation. You can have a conversation with somebody. It doesn't have to be wrapped around a piece of content. There's no privacy. 84% of the accounts are open. You can just talk, and it's like publicly viewed, and it's just easy. I like human to human, like this whole COVID thing is driving me crazy. But anyway, like you could just have a conversation with somebody. So when Twitter came out, I was like, well, I love going out. I love being social. I love going out at night, this and that. And I'm like, I can do this 24 hours a day globally and make friends around the world. Like this is my heaven. This is my virtual nightclub. And I was like, I want to get as big as possible. So while I was building the digital agency, I was also growing on Twitter. But I wasn't doing it like there was no such thing as selling tweets to brands and getting paid for it and promoting something. Like there was none of that. I didn't find out about that until I came back to the States maybe 4 years ago. So I was having a big brand just because it was getting me public notoriety, which led to more clients for my agency. And then when I sold the agency, I still provided all the same services of a digital agency, and it got me clients for that. That was the only reason that I used this. And then when I came back to the States, PR agencies reached out to me and I said, well, what do you mean if I do a post, you'll pay me that? Like, I don't understand. What else do I have to do? And they're like, no, that's it. And I'm like, I don't get it. Like, what do you want? And they're like, no, this is it. And they are the ones that taught me about the whole thing, influencer stuff. And I think it's a horrible word because it's just wrapped around ego and it's all about me. And that's never been me. I can't stand that. It's a horrible, horrible word because that's not what the industry is about. The industry is about building an audience and actually giving to your audience, not taking from your audience. And that's the issue with this industry. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, because precisely what I brought up in the introduction is that I once tweeted this thing and you replied to me and you had over 500,000 followers. I was like, what the fuck happened? He just replied to me. Like my first thought was, this is a bot, right? This is automated. But then I discovered it was not, right? So it's about being genuine. But the other thing is also that I think it sort of creates a snowball effect. The bigger you get,
right,
the more opportunities you get just because of this notoriety, right?
Yeah.
So if other people want to hire you to learn how to build a brand, it's because you have this exposure and you have this big following as well, right? And you don't need to prove anything. You've done it for yourself first, right?
Correct.
You don't need.
Correct. And to that point, even when people hire me and they've already done the research and they know that my brand aligns with their brand and things like that, they contact me because they know, and I challenge anybody to do this. You can go on any one of my platforms and you will never see a comment that is either not recognized where I like it or a reply. And it's the first thing I do every morning. I reply to every single comment, every single tweet, every single, it's the same if a human walked by you on the sidewalk and said, they looked you in the eye, smiled and said, good morning. Like, would you walk by and not say anything and not even give them the common respect? And the fact that you're smirking, it means how ridiculous that would be to do in real life. So if it's that ridiculous in real life, why would you do it on digital? It's the same thing. There's a human on the other side of that platform.
Correct. And how about the business part of it? Because we all know, I think it's safe to assume that everybody sort of knows that most influencers struggle. And I don't know about you, so my next question is going to be like,
right now
did
they're
you
really
struggle? Was that?
Right now they're really struggling.
Right now, yeah. But did you struggle in the beginning, and how difficult did you find it to sort of convert or upsell your partners to paying customers? Because I assume most of it's unpaid jobs, right?
Because
especially in travel.
Yeah. So I don't use that as my primary income. So still to this day, the whole influencer thing, it might maybe apply to 15% of my revenue. I do it because it gets me a ridiculous amount of exposure on the front end. And then I use that exposure to capture clients and really dig my claws into them and keep them as clients for years.
Great.
So once I go to a property or go to a destination or work with an airline or go on a cruise, then I'm in front of these people. Then they could see I'm much more than just a big Instagram account or a big Twitter account. Then we actually have a drink or have dinner and talk about the services that I offer. Then they become a serious client.
Correct.
So that's actually never been an issue for me, but it's a huge issue in the industry. Huge.
And my point being, isn't this sort of like not monetizing strategy perpetuating this vicious circle of people not being able to monetize it when they first enter these industries? Well,
so the reason for that is people got into the industry for the wrong reason. They got into it for the vanity numbers. They got into it for the free shit. They got into it because they get to go to cool places for free. They got into it because all these different reasons. They didn't get into it to make a business. But then once they're already wrapped up into it for 6 months, a year, 18 months, and then they realize, oh shit, I'm broke. So when I'm not staying at a $5,000 a night villa, where am I going to sleep? I'm going to sleep on my friend's couch and eat tuna out of a can. And like, I literally don't have 2 nickels to rub together. Like, what am I going to do now? That's the problem of the industry. And then they all start to offer the same services. Oh, well, let me put together my presets on Instagram for you because I know you all want to be like me. Like, come on, man. Like, offer something, be unique, be real, be different, be human. Like, use your brain. Don't just copy what 3 other people beside you. It's mind-blowing to me. That the industry just stays the way it is.
You mentioned that your whole life or your whole contracts got canceled literally overnight because of this pandemic, right? So how is this affecting, what happened? What kind of contracts have you got in place usually that they were disrupted by this situation?
So I normally speak at between, 10, 15, sometimes 20 conferences around the world a year.
Great. Yeah.
And, have a lot of consulting jobs and I build out digital strategies and then obviously my trips.
Yeah.
So obviously the first things to go were the conferences and the trips. And all of them got canceled. 9 speaking engagements, 27 trips, I think, 26 or 27 trips, and 5 consulting clients just basically put the brakes on. So everything in my life got canceled except for a TV show that I just signed on to be the TV host of. And the only reason that was not canceled, I'm convinced, I mean, I don't know this for sure, but in my opinion, the only reason is because probably 10 days before the whole lockdown happened, we just finished filming the first episode, edited and everything. So it already had a start date. It already had, the airing was already confirmed. Everything was already done. So for them to pull that plug would have been kind of stupid. So the episode's showing in a few days.
It's actually May 22nd, right? It's Friday.
Friday morning. It is the first travel series on Lifetime TV. It's called Video Globetrotter. And it's actually the first morning travel show ever.
I'm excited about that. I actually wanted to ask, so if they didn't pull it because you had already shot the first episode, how many episodes have you shot? Because I take it that you haven't been able to do it for a while, right? Or were you an area that you could do it?
That's the $1 billion question. So the second episode was supposed to be filmed in Italy. which
Yeah.
is not going to happen obviously right now.
No, right now.
I have asked the studio 20 times in the past 2 months, are we okay? Are we still moving forward? They're still super confident in it, and nobody has canceled anything. Obviously we need to rework how we're going to shoot the rest of the episodes because we've only shot one. And but as of right now, it's still a go.
You get like, what's the frequency of the show actually? Because
I don't know the answer to any of those questions.
Seems
I
like
know
this
we
is-
got a show coming up in 3 days.
this is pure entrepreneurship. You just ship your product and then you'll figure out the rest. Like
This
you
is
build your
we're in
parachute as
startup
you.
mode. We're in
Yeah.
startup mode, really.
Well, I mean, some areas of the world, and especially, I think like some countries are still opening for traveling, if I remember correctly, Ukraine, but that's not the kind of place you go in your shows. They usually go to more like exotic places in the terms more like Caribbean and island and things like that. But what's the plan for the show, actually? So where are the destinations that you had
I mean,
in your mind?
Listen, the plan for the show, I mean, we were going to be in Italy for the second episode. We were going to do California and Hawaii for the third episode. I mean,
So reinventing now.
Yeah, I mean, it's listen, I think it's going to come around, and I think that it'll get back on track. It's going to be very, very much, very similar to an Anthony Bourdain type, very much dealing with the locals and the culture and the food and the local music and people like that, like lots of locals in my show. Like it's the one thing I kept stressing on is I want a lot of local people wherever I go. So for me, that's really important. You know, if I come to Barcelona, I want you by my side, you know, like it's just, this is
2 meters distance though.
It just makes it real, you know?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm interested, because it's like, I know the industry of software and I know startups, but I don't know TV shows. I don't know how can you improvise there, because you need to plan ahead, record, go to places. There's a lot of post-production and all of that. Like, it's going to be terrible. So how are you compensating for all these losses of contracts? Like what percentage of your revenue has been canceled because of coronavirus, and how are you compensated for these losses?
100% has been canceled.
100%. Okay.
Okay. Having said that, listen, there's two ways you could view that. You could sit down, and for the last 68 days, I could sit down and cry every day and worry and do what you got to do and realize that, you know, the world is ending. Or you could realize that this is going to take a few months and get your head around it, get past it immediately, and start to work on the steps on recovery. So what I did is right after everything canceled, I reached out to all the clients that I work with, all the clients that I have worked with, and all the clients, importantly, that I want to work with. And I reached out to them. I said, what's your plan for recovery? What are you doing now? How are you communicating? Let's hop on a call. I'll work with your whole team. I'll walk you through the whole process. So I am giving as much as I can during this. And I'm telling you, I'm on 10 conference calls a day. Sometimes I'm waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning to work with the team from Singapore Airlines, and, you know, like walking people through stuff that they don't know what to say. They don't know what to post. They don't know what kind of videos to do. People just don't know. People are shell shocked. The great thing about this pandemic, the great thing is at one point in time, every country in the world was on lockdown, which means it's the greatest equalizer of our lifetime. Everybody is starting at zero. So it doesn't matter if you're going up against a Goliath, a billion-dollar company, or you're going up against a startup. Everybody is starting at the same starting line.
What changes have you seen in the contracts or even in the requests of the projects that you're negotiating right now? I'm saying length of contract is shorter now, or the pay, like the fees are below standard. What changes have you seen in the in hiring or?
So the length of the contracts are not changing. Some people have less of a budget, but some people, like, I can't get into brands, but there's one brand that I was talking to the CMO, I'd say a week and a half ago, And he actually requested from his board to triple his marketing budget the second half of the year.
Yeah.
This is for a big company. And he said, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. He goes, I need a couple weeks. So that actually might go up. So overall, they're remaining about the same. And it's just starting to happen now because recovery is just happening. So I'm getting a lot of those calls right now. I'm already getting inquiries on trips. Obviously, we're not talking dates yet, but we're already talking about what to highlight on the trip. If I'm coming with a video guy or a camera guy, or if it's just me or a plus one, or, you know, like we're talking about every aspect of the trip except for the dates.
Yeah.
So I was speaking the end of March, beginning of April in South Africa, the biggest luxury travel conference in Africa, ILTM. Those dates already got abolished for 2020 and it already got rescheduled. So I'm speaking there in March 2021. And I've already signed on for 3 more speaking engagements for 2021. And, you know, things are getting rebooked. I mean, listen, it's at the end of the day, it's going to be 3 months without revenue and 3 months of giving instead of giving and taking. And it is what it is. You got to remain optimistic. Like negativity is a poison.
Well,
once
assuming that you've got enough
inside of you, you're done.
Yeah, but that sort of assumes that you've got enough cash in the bank to sort of sustain yourself for a while, right? Because a lot of startups, for instance, they don't have that, and
Correct.
they live, you know, hand to mouth. And so,
hence, let me tell you one thing. That's actually one of the biggest problems with startups is
correct.
The people that are running them, your immediate circle, the people that you associate with, the people that you surround yourself with, these are your crutch. No matter if you got a broken leg or not, they are your crutch to help you stand up. This is so important in times like this, whether it's for positive reinforcement, whether it's for financial help, whatever it's for. This is why your immediate circle are the most important people in your life. This is why it's always smart to look around to make sure that you're surrounded by the right people. Because if you're not, you need to switch those people out very quickly.
So what would be your recommendations for certain actions, mostly marketing, I take, but maybe it can be also like other like sales or operations that startups need to deploy now in order to be prepared for, you know, 6 months from now when we'll be back to normal? What can you do right now?
Well, first off, the world is not getting less digital. Okay.
Yes.
It's common knowledge that the more eyeballs you control, the more power you hold in the future. So build up those eyeballs. Start pushing out content on a consistent basis. It's always been a huge crippling effect for startups to be active on social media. Why? Like it's always astounded me. Like why is it that difficult to be active on social media? You say that there's no time, but if you invest the time now, what's that going to bring you in 18 months? Yeah, there's no ROI. A dollar bill's not falling on top of your head in 24 hours. That's true.
That's true.
But look at the companies a year ago that I told to get more digital, and now they were screwed during this pandemic. Screwed. Yeah. They had no brick and mortar foot traffic walking in. They had no audience to talk to. They didn't know how to do social media. Now what? They're sitting there on their hands, not knowing what to do with zero income for 3 months.
It's always great to plan ahead.
Use this as a wake up.
Yeah. One of the greatest things that I think about like marketing, for instance, I'm a huge believer in content-based marketing, right? And I blog, I write on LinkedIn, for instance, every day, just because I know of that compounding effect, but also blogging accumulates over the year that builds SEO. I can understand that a company's perhaps best channels are not social media. If you're, I don't know, doing enterprise sales, for instance, because you know that cold calling works better, right? But maybe it's a good time to try some experiments. And since your marketing department will not be deploying all of your budget in other parts of the business, maybe you can relocate to social media. So yeah, I take it there's no generally strategy, right, for all these kind of marketings. But how do you usually advise companies to select their, or to find out which is the the channel that works the best for them?
You got to test
all
them
these
all out.
channels. Which
You have
one
to
works the
test
best?
them all out. I mean, you have to, because every company is different. First off, you have to find your brand voice. Who are you as a company? Who are you as a founder? And if the person leading your company isn't active on digital, go on YouTube and learn how to get active on digital, because you need to be active. Studies have shown, out of Silicon Valley, studies have shown that founders that are visible on digital, their companies are so much more profitable, bottom line.
That's an interesting correlation.
Because if your company has a human element, like him or hate him, people know Facebook is Mark Zuckerberg. People know Tesla is Elon Musk. People know, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
It's
I totally get the point.
It's a human element.
I never reflected on that. But on the other side, like this is good for founders and CEOs, right? And I take it because they can create more, more of an effect in the company because of this visibility. They are the true voice and whatnot. But how about the rest of the people in the company? Because we're seeing a massive tsunami of people joining right now the online landscape, and everybody, for instance, webinars. You brought up that in the beginning, right? Sure. Everybody's doing fucking webinars right now. Most of them are terrible, right? Because they just jumped the opportunity right now. They're not going to be here for the long term. They're just like preying on these dead animal right now. But I don't think there's enough for everybody. And it sort of creates the effect that it dilutes the message of every other webinar out there. So there's much more mediocrity because everybody has joined. What's your advice in that? How can we stand out in this sea of mediocrity we have all created right now?
Listen, the way you stand out, quality rises to the top. The way you stand out is being the best version of yourself and continue to do so, because the cream always rises to the top. Listen, do you know how many people in the influencer space are going to be washed out after this? That completely ran out of cash, or completely got burnt out, or 95%. Whatever the case may be. They ran out of free stuff, or whatever it is, and the whole industry will reset after this.
Yes.
And it's the same way with webinars. It's the same way with Zoom or the next Zoom or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
You just need to keep pushing out consistent content. And the quality of your content, especially right now, has never meant less.
Yeah. And it's sort of like this accumulated content over the years gives you more credibility, right? So one of the things 100%. Is like, hey, of course we had never done online events at Startup Grind Barcelona up until now, but we've done over 100 interviews offline, right? That sort of gives me some sort of, I don't know, an advantage, right? An upper hand. Sure. But it just, every company has got a bit of luck, or some companies have just joined and they're lucky and their content is really good. And even bigger companies, because they've got the budget, they can have better quality, better post-production, access to better speakers. So it's not exactly level field, right?
Also, it's nice to show the evolution from shit to greatness.
Yes.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
If you go look at my first post on Instagram, it's a pile of garbage. Garbage. HDR,
my first blog post,
and just heavy, and just it was horrible. I'll never delete my old posts. And it's such a thing with influencers. They archive all the garbage and just leave their good stuff. So basically they're telling the world they were born great.
All right. No, that's interesting.
I sometimes show that you're human.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
And also you learn by making, right? Or you learn by
100%.
Doing. Like I always go back to my first blog post for my company in 2013, right? 7 years ago. They were utter shit. Like they were really terrible to read. Garbage. We had literally nothing to talk about, but like I like to keep them there just because it's a reminder of whenever someone new joins the company, it's like, oh, I'm not as good in blogging like you. It's like, well, take a look at these blogs from 7 years ago. I was terrible.
Right.
So and how about like, if you were to host some webinar, let's say like you spotted an opportunity here, what would be the trends that you would be focusing on? What do you think you can gauge more interest for that, for a webinar right now?
What do you mean? If I were to start a webinar?
Correct. Yes. Sorry, of your own.
I would start with what I know. I wouldn't look at what's hot. I would look at what I know well. That's always what you should focus on. You shouldn't look at the trends. You should focus on what you do well, and don't go outside your, don't try to do 100 different things. The narrow your niche and really stay in your lane and get good at one thing, then you can broaden your focus.
That's good advice, because it's sort of, these people trying to join on the trend right now. I think they will be washed out, kind of like the influencers that you're saying, just because there's too many things going on. So how about the trends in the industry, business wise? Now speaking, where do you spot the opportunity in terms like, hey, I'm gonna be reshifting my focus on this? Of course, you know what you know, and you've got a great accumulated knowledge of your industry over the years, but there's going to be a paradigm shift, right? In the terms of, maybe people are more interested in content right now. I don't know, change of platforms. Where do you see the transformation is happening in the travel industry?
So I'll tell you,
Yes.
I'm getting a lot of calls from brands who I've talked to in the past about leaning heavy on digital.
Yes.
That have always resisted. Now, all of a sudden, they're interested because they're screwed. So they learned a lesson the hard way.
Yeah.
So now what we're doing is, and you see like the videos I've been creating, and my video guys, like the best of the best. We are creating these video marketing funnels for brands. And basically, it's my normal trips on the top of the funnel. And then that funnel just goes down and just builds into ROI for them, where the collection of data, and they turn into a client, and, there's just layer after layer of marketing funnels for them. It's really, if you're saying, what are the trends I'm focusing on now? I'm leaning more heavily on setting up digital strategies for people than I've ever focused on in my life, because I think that people will actually take me serious now.
And how about for companies?
It's sort of like you have a house
Yes.
that's never been broken into, and you're a door-to-door salesman selling burglar alarms, and they laughed in your face, right? All of a sudden, they get robbed. All their stuff got stolen.
Now everybody comes.
There you go, baby.
And how about for companies? Because the travel tech industry has been sort of, it's been disrupted, and it's been brought to a complete halt. Some companies have lost 100% of the revenues, and they had hundreds of employees, right? If not thousands. So, and we're seeing some transformation, obviously B2C moving more to B2B, because it's always safer. Companies are still around and whatnot, and people are more skeptical about spending more, whereas companies, they just need to do it, right? Because they need to do it. What's your advice for companies trying to spot new opportunities in the market?
Spend time on digital. Really, I sign up for virtually every tourism webinar that's out there. 99% of them are absolute trash. But I sign up for, there's probably 20 a day. What I do is I give them 2 minutes. If they can catch my attention and really make me want to listen to the rest of the 58 minutes, I'll stay on. If they don't catch my attention in the first 2 minutes, I log off and go to the next one. I want to know what people are thinking. I want to know what brands are thinking. I want to know what CMOs are thinking. I look up CMOs every day of my life on every social media platform, and I want to know how they're commenting, what they're posting, what they're replying. I want to know everything, because once you have all that data, then you can crunch everything and look for the opportunities. You need to be a sponge when it comes to information on social media to find new opportunities.
And are you seeing a change of the area of the world where companies are switching their attention to, like companies that used to be more like country centric, opening up to the rest of the world, or China is recovering, so perhaps let's just switch to over to China? Or
yes, you can do that, but it's very short lived. Like, yeah, China's marketing towards Taiwan and Korea and the rest of Asia, but you think that within 6 months they're not going to be marketing towards the US? Come on. So that's like jumping on the Zoom trend. I'm in it for the long haul. So I'm not looking for a 6-month trend. I'm looking for what's going to happen in the next 5 years. I'm building long-term strategies, not 6-month strategies. I mean, you can jump on those, in the tourism world, jump on what's hot. Jump on, nobody's going to be staying at mega resorts right now with 500 rooms. They're going to be staying at boutique places. They're going to be staying in individual lodges and cabins, and they're going to be taking road trips, and they're going to be taking this. But if you think nobody's going to be flying long haul again, you have another thing coming. That's what they said after 9/11 happened. Nobody was going to fly again.
Well, it took a while, right? I think that the levels of flying, it took almost like 2 years to get back to normal.
But to get back to normal. But do you know what the normal numbers are? Well, like 10% of normal is still a lot.
It's enough.
That's what people fail to realize when you're watching CNN, you're watching CNBC and things like that, and they say, "Oh yeah, it'll take 4 years to get back to normal." Normal's a shitload. Like, give me 5% of normality right now. I'm good. Yeah. Ride what you have. Don't ride on what the media says. Ride on the reality of what's in front of you.
And so how about the planning? Like, because it's difficult. I remember the first days of confinement and lockdown and whatnot. We were almost changing our plans on a daily basis in our company, right? Because a lot of unknowns, lots of instability, contracts being, canceled and all of that. How far are you planning ahead right now?
There's some companies that want to do it for 3 months. There's some companies, the majority are looking 12, 18 months. All right. If you're a serious company, if you're only looking 3 months, what are you doing in that 4th month? Like, unless you have a huge team that's very knowledgeable that I can hand it off to, like that 4th month, you're going to get crushed.
And a couple of questions about sales, because you're a good salesman. Now that we're talking contracts, is there any strategy you're employing right now to close contracts, to sign off contracts right now, even if they cannot be executed, but sort of, how you call that? Like, for instance, telling people to say, okay, let's sign the contract, but we assume that this has to be deployed in the next year or something like that, but let's sign it off now so that you can start predicting your revenue. Is there something you're doing in this regard?
Yeah. So basically what a lot of companies are doing. So I have a 18-month with someone, and basically what they're doing is it is a retainer that's reviewed every quarter. Okay. Which I would never agree to before. But now things are changing, so it's, you have to be flexible when you're in times like this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You have to.
And how do you upsell clients, for instance? Is there something like outside of this situation? How do you usually upsell clients? You mentioned that you're getting their attention by using your branding, but then you turn them into customers that perhaps the first project is not very big, and then you upsell them to a retainer, I take, right? How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, you got to show your value. And the way you show your value, the way I show my value is for me, it's all about relationship marketing. So I develop relationships on social media, therefore having conversations with people, knowing, like, my personal life and my business life is exactly the same. There's no wall. So you'll see me talking about my niece and my sister and my father and whatnot on my social media, right next to me talking and promoting a hotel, because it's the same to me. Yeah. So that automatically gets me into very personal conversations with the people that are decision makers that I talk with all the time.
That's interesting.
So that automatically takes my relationship to the next level. And then, you know, it's just organic conversation, just like when you and I talk when we're in person. You know, you talk about somebody's background and they learn, oh, you do this, oh, you do that. And they heard that I work with other clients and, oh, what do you do for them? And, you know, then we just talk about different services that I provide. And so here's something that I do. I offer this service, but I actually never really offer it. I sort of just do it. So when I go to a client, but actually before I even go on the trip, I will look at, say I'm going to a hotel, and okay, I'll give you a perfect example.
Yeah.
November, I went with my 2 video guys, we went to the Maldives, to this brand new resort. It was sick. The content was unbelievable. And before I went, I dove deep into all the marketing, all the website, all the content, everything for both resorts that we were going to stay at. That way, when I went there, I always make sure that there's a dinner with the decision maker, whether that's the director of marketing, director of PR, GM, whoever it is, make sure I have multiple dinners with them.
Yeah.
And organically, they're always going to say, well, what do you like? What don't you like? You know, have you seen anything, this and that? I always go into basically a social media or a digital audit of them. Instead of charging them for that, I'll say, listen, I spent a couple hours looking over everything before I came. You want to hear my thoughts?
And yeah,
who on earth is ever going to say no?
And usually that couple, I mean, you can even do it in faster than that. You don't need a full 2 hours sometimes. Sometimes it's just so evident, right? But that covers like 80% of the project, and just fixing that.
Correct.
It's 20% of the budget, right? The Pareto principle. So that's a great point.
So the problem is people don't want to spend the time giving because they feel that they have to charge for every aspect of their life.
Yeah.
I am very big on giving first and taking the long game, and it will always come back to you. Always. And if it doesn't, okay, you move on.
And that's one of our values.
If you do that 10 times, you're winning. At the end of the day, you're winning.
How can you sell long-term projects to marketing when it's something so volatile? And especially people in marketing have a huge rotation, right? The same CMO doesn't stay in the company for a lot of time.
I mean, you're not going to sell long-term marketing contracts. You're not.
Okay, what's the longest you sell usually? Like
18
1
months.
year? 18 months.
At max. And those are rare. Typically, you're signing 3 6-month deals or one-offs. So I actually prefer to do one-offs, because if I do sign a 6-month with a hotel, realistically, even if it's not in the contract, they don't really want me to promote another hotel while I'm under contract with them.
Yeah.
Even though it's not worded that way, like I even feel like sort of dirty about it. You know what I mean? Like I want to do the right thing. So I would prefer to do one-offs, and I have such a good relationship with that person that I know they're just going to keep on coming back to me.
Okay, so you don't work then on retainers for long term?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but most of the time no.
Yeah, because you would be conflicting with mostly like hotels and
I've never had an exclusivity deal with anybody. I mean, the amount that they would have to pay is just unrealistic for them to pay.
Yeah. How much?
I built up my brand, so the more active I am on social, because I'm followed by the right people, all PR agencies, CMOs, all decision makers, you know, like I made sure that I engage with the right people on social. The more active I am, the more income and business I get.
And how do you get to sort of counsel or advise companies to embrace digitalization right now? If it's such an urgent thing, you cannot do it overnight, right? Build technology. This process you're doing with an Excel file, or your company needs to be, your people need to be working remotely. Therefore, you need more like a centralized point of truth, whatever, platforms, adoption of technology. Do you advise companies in doing that? Did you probably that's something that you were not requested before now, but probably are you getting these sort of deals right now?
No.
Okay. No. They are not worried about that, or it's because
I don't know. I'm just not having those conversations with them.
Is it because it falls out of your scope of your?
Probably.
Okay. That's also great, because I think that a lot of companies are trying to advise now on things that they have been doing for weeks only, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
focusing on it.
and that's the other problem with jumping on trends. You're
Yeah.
getting out of your lane.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not very strict with staying in travel because I do work in the automotive industry because I think marketing is marketing, but
Yeah.
I do really stay in my lane about services that I offer.
Great. 3 last questions to kind of like wrap up because time flies and we've already been here for almost an hour. The first one is about cultural differences. You started up in Asia, and of course, being you've been always a traveling person, but not back then. You were starting, right? How did you deal with cultural differences? Was there like something funny that you remember, or especially in business?
Oh man, I mean, before I started the agency in Asia, I mean, I spent 2.5 years in Bangkok, and it was
Sort
a
of absorbed
cultural
everything.
slap in the face. I just, it was so different. I mean, people are just very kind and warm there, and I didn't understand Thai. And in Bangkok, everybody, pretty much everybody, they understand English, or you know, they're willing to teach you a little bit of Thai, and there's enough foreigners there, and you can get by not speaking Thai in Bangkok 100%.
Do you still speak it, or
I understand quite a bit. I mean, I took it for probably 6 years.
Wow.
So, you know, I can say a Swati cup. So
what's the most, one of the signature questions we've got here at Star Brand Barcelona is, what's the most expensive fuck up you've ever done, professionally speaking? And if you can quantify it. What have you squandered like the most, like the biggest amount of money in an experiment that failed? Or
so I set up after I sold the agency, I was back in Europe, and I was going to set up a small investment banking firm in London. And right before we were going to open up the doors, and I was the only one putting in the money, right before we were going to open up the doors, that's when Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers went out of business and the 2008 financial crisis happened.
A great time.
So I lost every penny.
Can you quantify more or less where that sits in terms of?
Literally every penny. Like the faucet just, yeah. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I lived overseas for 17 years. I lost every penny I had 3 times.
That's,
you know why? Because when I go all in on something, I literally go all in. Like if I believe in something, I will go all in overnight.
Well, that's passion. Probably the same passion brought you to the stage of where you're at, right?
100%. I mean, I'm all or none on everything that I do.
Great. And the last question, Scott, last question. This is a very important one. This is probably the hardest question you will ever come across, right? Everybody has got a useless superpower, something you do exceptionally well, but it's fucking useless, right? What's yours?
I drink wine.
Well, no, I mean, yeah.
I'm pretty good at that. Actually, I'm not useless at that. I'm pretty useful.
Yeah, I think
the last time we hung out, where was it?
Yeah, at the Charles Kruk Winery in Napa Valley. So, but that was pretty useful. It should be something like I always like lose one of the 2 socks, or I don't know, something related to travel, probably. Like I always miss flights, or
no. I
always pay for overweight luggage for whatever reason. They take that.
I am always overweight.
Okay.
If I travel, I am either at or over the weight limit all the time. because most people in my industry, this is actually an oxymoron because nobody in my industry travels like me. I always travel super heavy. I have never just traveled with a carry-on. I always travel with 2 gigantic suitcases because, in my opinion, I would rather be prepared for every scenario rather than unprepared for one thing.
Also, you're doing luxury. You're not a bootstrapping entrepreneur selling shit on Amazon, right?
And my feet are gigantic. So I wear 47 and a half, 13 in the US. So 2 pairs of shoes in the suitcase, it's half full. Come on. Come on.
That's a good one. We've never had that one. We've always had like really, really good useless superpowers, but I think we've never had like I'm always overweight luggage. All right. Well, thank you very much, Scott. If there's any last words you want to give to the audience before we wrap this up, to kind of like encourage people to invest in the travel sector, or have some positive words.
Listen, it's absolutely not about travel. It's all about yourself. As I said before, the world is not getting less digital. You need to put yourself out there. You need to create more content and be more active than you've ever been on digital. Yes, it's noisy, but at the end of the day, the cream rises to the top. The shit always sinks.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Duly noted. Great words of wisdom. And I would just say good luck in your travels, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon. Hopefully, yes. Good luck with your show airing for the premiering on Friday, the 22nd. Yes, and where's it going to be hosted?
So it's on Lifetime TV in the US only, but once it airs, the Video Globetrotter YouTube page will have all the full episodes.
Perfect. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll definitely stay tuned and subscribe to it, because it's I've been following you for 6 years now, 7 years perhaps. So it's going to be interesting.
Dude, stop following me around. Come on, man. Come on.
Thank you very much, Scott. Have a nice
bro.
day. Have a good stay in Florida, and good luck with the show. Bye bye.
Right,
Thank you, everybody.